Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am excited to talk with David Greer. Let me tell you about him. While still attending the University of British Columbia, David joined Robelle Solutions Technology as the first employee after the founders. After joining Robelle, he got permission from his fourth-year professor to take a week off so that he could fly to an international conference to give his first ever technical presentation. During David's tenure as co-owner and president of Robelle, he traveled the world giving new presentations every year, creating a multi-million-dollar product line while building Rochelle into one of the world's leading providers of HP 3000 solutions. Since successfully exiting Robelle, he has been an angel investor, director, and senior executive, always working one-on-one with entrepreneurs to define strategy, increase the value of the company, and define formalized processes that drive outcomes. David now works directly with entrepreneurs to coach them to the next level of success, or with entrepreneurs and their senior management team to create high growth strategies. He specializes in working with entrepreneurs challenged by alcoholism and addiction. Today, we're going to talk about something that he promotes on his website, and I thought is a really good topic, which is 3 actions to accelerate your business. So please join me in welcoming my guest, David Greer. Hi, David. Excited to be talking with you today.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And we always start out with a couple easy questions, although sometimes people tell me they're not that easy. But the first is, where do you live? Where do you call home?
I call home Vancouver, BC, Canada.
Another Canadian. I love interviewing Canadians. So, and I have not been, well, I've been to Vancouver, I've been to Toronto, but that's, and Calgary. That's the extent of my Canadian visits, but I love Canada. I love the people. So happy to have
Thanks. We're happy to have you here.
Yes. So we gave this wonderful insight to some of your journey, and so exciting to be that first employee as working with the founders of a company. You know, a startup is always exciting, but I'm sure you didn't come out of school right then and do all this. Talk to us about what this journey was like for you to really go from employee to someone that was leading the company, and now what you're doing today.
Sure. So, looking back and like the intro, you talked about my going down, to San Jose, where I attended my first HP International User Group meeting and giving my first paper. And so I was actually leading at that time. I just didn't really realize it.
Yes.
My then boss, eventually partner, was a specialist, and I had worked with him for 2 years as a student on a project that he was leading. And we were working on this computer system that was virtually brand new and was a leading edge computing system. And, I remember standing up in the San Jose convention floor, like giving demos like 22 years
Mhm.
old. And no one told me 22-year-olds don't do that. Like I just did it. And probably by the time I was 25, I remember we were in San Antonio for the same convention because it happened every year. And I probably gave 80% of the demos.
Mm.
Because I was really good about listening, asking people questions and listening for maybe 5 minutes. And then I would show them maybe 5% of the product, but the exact 5% that
It's
met
related to their
their
question.
particular way they developed software and the way they
Mm-hmm.
did things. Um, and so, I was and I was part of, my former partner, Bob, and I both each wrote a new paper every year and traveled the planet, creating belief in this obscure BC-based software company you were going to trust your whole company to. Um, so all of that really was leadership, and then we started an R&D kind of subsidiary, and I was president of that. And then 10 years in, and so Robelle comes from Robert and Annabelle. It's a concatenation of their
Ah,
names, right?
ah.
And it's a made-up name, so it actually Google's, it's very unique. Google's very well, even today. Although, I don't think they knew that when they founded it in 1977.
Yeah.
Um, and Annabelle wanted to retire, and I ended up buying her out. But I borrowed most of the money from her and had to be paid back in 3 years. And if I
Mm-hmm.
missed a quarterly payment, she had the option to demand back all of the shares.
Wow.
And I remember, I'm in my probably early 30s, mid 30s. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and leaving an
Yeah.
accountants meeting in downtown Vancouver, and I literally standing outside the elevator with tears in my eyes. Like just, so people look back and say, oh, you're 20 years and a big success. Like it's still, there's still a lot that happens behind the scenes. There's still a
Yeah.
lot of emotion that's involved. Fast forward 10 years, Bob and I got along pretty well, but, in our 20-year relationship, we had one disagreement, and that one was a doozy and ended in divorce.
Oh,
So
wow.
he ended up buying me out in early 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm busy not even noticing that there's a dot-com meltdown. And, it's not a good
Yeah.
time to be starting new things in the tech sector. And someone smarter than me, through some networking I did, sat me down and said, David, your kids will never be 11, 9, and 5 again. Like, do you need to work right away? And I'm like, no, I just got a really big check in my jeans. I do need to work. I do want to and will work again, but I don't need to do it right away. And so my wife and I hatched this plan where we commissioned a sailboat in the south of France, and we took our 3 kids and we homeschooled them for 2 years while sailing more than 5,000 nautical miles in the Mediterranean.
Oh my goodness.
And I wouldn't have had that opportunity if Bob hadn't bought me
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So, right?
Or had the courage to do that.
Yes. Yeah, like to leave the business for
Yeah.
like a year, say,
Yeah.
to do that kind of adventure. I don't think I could have envisioned it even.
Yeah. And
Um,
your kids will remember that forever.
yeah, it's a legacy we have as a family. Like it's woven
Mm-hmm.
into the fabric of
Yeah.
our family, right? Um,
Right. Right.
like we went 18 months without being in an English speaking country,
Wow.
right? Like it's
So
all of
cool.
those experience, and you still got to get groceries. I got to feed 3 growing kids,
Yeah. Yeah. You got to
right?
make sure
And
you manage that money well.
well,
You're,
that and get boat projects done. I mean,
mm-hmm.
they'd watch dad struggle to try and, find a part for the boat in a,
Yeah.
in a place that hardly anyone spoke English, but we muddled our way through and figured it out.
Yeah.
I came back. I did 3 years of angel investing, which you referred to in the
Mm-hmm.
bio. And then eventually I went to a training event with a guy, Vern Harnish. His books are The Rockefeller Habits and Scaling Up. And he's built a framework, which I actually now specialize in. It's the framework I use in my strategic planning. And at that event, he had 2 coaches that were trained in like his framework and how he did things. And I ended up talking to both of them. And one of those coaches made me more uncomfortable than I'd been in half a dozen years. And I had tears in the corner of my eyes. Like he really just shone a light on how unfulfilling this angel work and working with people that were 12, 15 rungs down the ladder from me. And just, and it took me a year to try and get him up one rung. So anyways, it was Coach Kevin Lawrence, great guy. I had his card next to my phone for probably 3 weeks. And once a week I'd look at the card and look at the phone seemed to weigh 10,000 pounds. And then after about 3 weeks, Kevin called me and he said, "Hey, it's Coach Kevin." He said, "We met at the Vern Harnish event." He said, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Yes." And, my brain's going, well, I haven't thought about much else in 3 weeks, but yes, I remember you. And so I hired him, and our first coaching session was on my 50th birthday. And Kevin is my kind of guy. He's all in or all out, and all in with Kevin at that time meant that your first coaching session was 2 8-hour days. So we went hard. The second day we were both feeling restless. So we probably walked about 10 miles in our dress shoes. We're just, that's why I knew he was the right coach for me. And he knew I was the right client for him. We're just crazy entrepreneurs. So I worked with Kevin for 9 years and did amazing things with him. But the most amazing is that 18 years in, we'd cleared all the clutter and we'd kind of got my career restarted. And the only thing left was the elephant in the room. And on January 26, 2009, the way I worked with Kevin is the night before, I'd send him an email with the positive things that had happened since the last call and then the topic for the conversation. And I had my last beer. I'd actually kind of planned it all out. And about 10 o'clock at night, I sent him an email message and I said, the topic for our coaching call tomorrow, Tuesday, is my drinking. And the next afternoon, I admitted to Kevin that I had a drinking problem. And he was probably the first human being that I admitted that to.
Wow. Yeah.
And Kevin coached me to go to 12-step recovery. And that was a Tuesday afternoon. He asked me to commit to go. Coaches don't make you do things. They ask you to do things and you can choose to agree or not. Anyways, I committed to going by that Friday to a 12-step meeting. And later that afternoon, I knew I had an event downtown, a technology networking event and presentation that I was attending. I knew it finished at 8, so I went online and I looked for meetings that night. And lo and behold, at 8:30, there would be a meeting a quarter of a block off the road I would be driving on to go home.
You meant it was God's way.
It was the universe meant for this to happen.
Yes.
And I went to that meeting. And towards the end of the meeting, the chairperson asked, is there anyone new to the program that wants to stand and introduce themselves? And I sat on my hands for probably 20 seconds, but the chairperson was very patient. And then I stood up and I said, I'm David, I'm an alcoholic. And I think the first time I really ever admitted my truth. And I don't even think I knew what it meant when I first did it. And I don't know, a few weeks later, I made that my home group, which is a group you commit to going to every week and you give service at. And this week on Tuesday, I was at my home group, same one, 15 years, 4 months and some odd weeks, days later. That's still my group. And when I took my 15-year cake there, I think there was 4 people at least in the room who were there the night I came in. So, so anyways, with Kevin's help, I got into some executive gigs, doing like senior leadership roles, usually marketing and sales, but usually helping like a CEO friend. And behind the scenes, I'd be working on strategy work. The last one of those was VP of marketing for a company called WebTech Wireless, which is in the telematics space. That's devices that get bolted to trucks and cars and track where you are in real time. And I came out of that gig and I realized I'd probably worked harder in the 3 years at WebTech than I had my whole career. And I'm in my mid-50s, and I finally decided I did not need to prove to anyone that I can work hard. So anyways, I worked with Kevin and we worked on a transition plan. And I just eventually, came to the conclusion I wanted to give to other entrepreneurs the gifts that Kevin had given to me. And so I made the decision to become an entrepreneurial coach and a facilitator.
Awesome. It's
And
funny. When I turned 50, I had that same kind of realization that I no longer wanted to, I no longer worried about what people cared about what I did. As long as I knew I did a good job, I was pleased, I was happy, and life was so much better.
yeah, yeah, it turns out the not working hard part for me is really, really hard. I am
Well,
super hardwired to
yeah.
do a lot of stuff.
I guess same thing for me. I mean, I'm 66 and I'm still working hard, but it's what makes me, it's what fulfills me. And so, some people retire and that's what they do, just hang around. But for me, I like to, like you, I want to give back all the things that were given to me.
Yeah, we're actually the same age.
Yeah. January baby, what are you?
August.
Oh, awesome. I'm older than you.
You are.
All right. Well, let's get into this. You talked about the strategy. That's really kind of where we're going to go for the beginning of this. But why do so many businesses get stuck when it comes to making that decision to accelerate their business? It's kind of like you sitting on your hands, I think, in that meeting.
I think there's a variety of reasons. I think that a business grows to a certain level and then it reaches its natural ceiling, which can be because they've saturated the market. They're like now become the dominant player in their market, or you hired a bunch of friends when you first started the business, and you all worked hard and you did a really good job, but it gets to a point where those people can't grow more, or they can't grow fast enough.
Yeah.
Like you can grow them eventually into what you need, but they can't grow fast enough. And as an entrepreneur, you've hired your friends and then having to let them go or move them into other positions. This is really hard stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sugarcoat it, right? It's hard stuff. And then I think many entrepreneurs, me included, get so entrapped by being in the business, responding to the next fire, the next email, the next sale, right? And we lose sight of the bigger picture. Like oftentimes with new clients, one of the things I ask them early on is like, why did you start the business? And they've lost sight.
Yeah.
Oh, I started the business so I could ... like any number of reasons, but it's like, and are you still living that today? And maybe they don't want to, like maybe it's changed. That's fine too. But oftentimes they actually have got so embroiled in the operation of the business, like what they actually like is developing new markets and coming up with new ideas. They're not doing any of that anymore. Like, because they've had so much success, it's just, they're just feeding into the success. And it's what I call, the business has the tiger by the tail. And right. Yeah. So, and you can be, so you can also, that's a case where you're a victim of your own success. Right. And,
and you also see that too. I often talk to people about, you hire somebody for an operational job and they do really, really good at it. And then you think, well, I need a manager, or I'm going to promote you to leadership management. And they still are in that operational mindset. Either they didn't have the opportunity to learn how to be a leader, or they just don't want to do that.
yeah,
It's like
exactly.
Somebody I interviewed yesterday, it was interesting. They said something that I've heard so many times. It's like, I love my job, but I hate the people part. It's like, okay, well, that's what a leader
another
is.
classic one is you take a really good salesperson and then you promote them to sales manager. They're like, it's not that it can't happen, but the skills, what makes a really great salesperson is someone who's kind of coin fed, hunt, kill, eat, hunt, kill, eat. Like that's the way they're wired. That's what they love. that's what they're really good at. And being a sales manager is strategic and people and management and bigger picture. And there's
Yeah,
no hunt, kill, eat in
reports.
that. Right? Yeah, reports and forecasts and so you promote that person and they're not successful. Well,
Yeah,
you didn't set them up for success, and
yeah,
you didn't like groom them over time and make sure that that's where they wanted their career path to go.
yeah. You didn't
Um,
listen to them.
yeah, so all of those, and then also another area that oftentimes people bring me in because they feel like their senior leaders are not listening to them. And then, I dig around for a little. It's like they hired really good people, but as owner founders, you grew the business and like by the seat of your pants, you figured everything out. And like you quote know how to do everything. But then when you hire someone better than you, they probably know how to do that, like marketing or maybe sales, probably know how to do it better than you.
Yeah,
And but you're not ready to let go because you developed the whole business and you know how to do it.
it's your
And
baby.
and it's your baby. And
Hmm.
so a lot of it is, you have to set the what needs to happen, and the how, you got to turn it over to them. And if they do it completely different than you do it, you just got to let them do it. Like
That's right.
it probably will go better, actually. But
Have
that
at it.
letting but that letting go piece and the letting go of the micromanaging piece and the not
Yeah.
sticking your hands back into the steering wheel and saying this is exactly how it has to happen, that's really hard when you've built the business from scratch because you've had to do all the hows and figure them out. And
Hmm.
it's part of your growth as an entrepreneur is to move to that next level. And so that's often where the stuck is. The
Yeah.
entrepreneur doesn't realize it. And, my belief is businesses grow at the rate that the entrepreneur can grow.
Right. Right.
Right.
So saying all that, what have you found, or why does it make sense to hire a facilitator for strategic planning? Maybe that isn't your forte. You created this business, but to really be strategic about how to grow, when to grow, why to grow. Um, what does a
Yeah.
facilitator bring to that?
So I actually have a video on my
Hmm.
YouTube channel around that. Like, if you want to facilitate, your own planning sessions, go for it. I mean, I've done that, and I've done it with
Hmm.
outside facilitators. I will say that doing it yourself is it's the part that you talked about. Maybe you don't have the skills to be a facilitator. It's really confusing for your senior leadership team. Like you have to be so clear in every conversation at the front of the room. Like, am I being facilitator right now? Or am I being CEO and participating in the
Hmm.
discussion?
Hmm.
Whereas when you hire an outsider, like those roles are really clear. There's the facilitator who's helping move all this forward.
Hmm.
And I co-create plans with my clients. Like you don't hire me just to facilitate because I'm going to be in there pretty deep,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
It's still your plan at the end of the day, but I'm going to dig
Mm.
around quite a bit and
Yeah,
question and challenge you,
yeah, I was going to
right?
say
Based
you
on
bring a
based on
different
my
perspective too, right?
exactly. And then that's the other thing is I have now I have all of my entrepreneurial experience over 40 years, and now I have an almost decade of experience working with all sorts of different clients in all sorts of different industries, plus all my angel experience where I worked,
Right.
I was director of multiple companies, uh, you know, multiple markets, multiple strategies, go-to-market strategies, business models. So, I have all that experience, but it also brings like I ask different questions
Yeah.
because I'm not so close to it and I have this experience. And I think that that's where the value of the facilitator being an outsider is that um, they can bring a completely different perspective and they can bring clarity to the group about, the CEO can fully participate as a member of the group creating the plan and doesn't have to worry about the facilitation plan and keeping people on track and keeping an agenda on track and keeping everything moving to actually come up with the plan.
Right. We also talk about feeling overwhelmed. A lot of entrepreneurs or even small business owners have that moment of feeling overwhelmed, but you say there's being overwhelmed and then there's being in control. So talk to us a little bit about those two dynamics where, um, you know, how
Yeah.
is it?
So, at the end of the day, we all have 24 hours,
Mhm.
and not many of, you might be able to work 24 hours once in a while,
Yeah,
but
not always.
not, I
Yeah.
can't, not well,
And it's
right?
not good for you.
Yeah. And all of those things. So, at the end, so that overwhelm, like at the end of the day, if you just keep down the path of saying yes and doing more, like you will be working 24 hours a day. So at some point you have to say what is reasonable. And then the hard part is I got to say no to a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so then the part I work with when I'm coaching clients, if I'm doing one-on-one coaching, is why is it so hard to say no?
Yeah.
And, is it because you don't have someone to delegate to? Is it because you always feel like you have to respond to clients in this timeline?
Mhm.
Is like, again, there's lots of reasons why it's so hard to say no. And then, my job as a coach is to just explore that and explore your beliefs around why it's so hard for you
Right.
to say no. Oh, because they'll never buy from me again. Like it turns out
Mhm.
most of these beliefs are not true. Some
Yeah.
are, but many of them aren't. I just help clients explore those.
Yeah.
And and um, and so that's, I think, where it starts with the saying no. And then a lot of the stuff that comes out of the Rockefeller habits is like a weekly team meeting with the people who you work directly with and coming up with the who, what, when list.
Mhm.
Like that discipline, a lot of entrepreneurs don't do that. And it's kind of loosey-goosey and everyone's kind of just doing their own thing. And you don't have this like meeting. And there's a very specific structure we recommend for this meeting. Like if you take the most expensive, brightest people in the company and put them in the room, you don't want you all reading reports. That you can
Yeah.
do that before the meeting. Like, what do you want to be doing? Debating what you should be doing this week.
Mhm.
And then when you leave the room, you got to be in agreement for what you're going to do for the next week. Then you get back together and you might have more debate. But and you need, and you also, the benefit, I can't overstate the benefit of writing things down.
Oh, yes.
Seriously.
Mhm.
Like a lot of my facilitated planning is to come up with like 4 or 5 things big goals you're going to achieve for the year. And then every quarter, get together and decide on the 4 or 5 things you're going to get done this quarter. They're going to lead you to those things you want to get done this year.
Yeah. Who's going to
And
do them, when they're going to get done, and how
yes,
you measure the
who's
success.
who's in charge of them? What are the finish lines, and are they clear?
Mhm.
A lot of my work in facilitation is just helping clients to get to finish lines, goals that are, it's like we meet from 3 months from now. How will we definitively say whether you achieve this or not? Because the way
Mhm.
you've written it right now, I have no idea how we'd figure out whether you achieve this or not. And so then it's like the right goal in the right direction, but it's not the right finish line,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
So you
So
really have to
anyways,
understand your values of the company and the culture to really know, is it is it the right goal?
yeah, and that's part of having planning sessions is to,
Mhm.
well, there is no right. My belief is in business, everything is an experiment.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because like that's why I like a quarter is 13 weeks. I like to
Mhm.
say in 13 weeks you can get some serious shit done. But if you're totally off base and heading in the wrong direction and like the market gives you feedback, like you still
Mhm.
got time to recover the year. Like you won't kill the
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
So that's why I really believe in like these weekly pulse points and this quarterly pulse point.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And a limited set of goals. I mean, I've done this as an entrepreneur. It's like have 18 goals for the year. And then your staff are like, well, yeah, which one do I focus on?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
which one's most important? Where do I start?
Mhm.
And if you focus on a very small, it's very hard sometimes to come up with that short list because there is a lot to do.
Yeah.
But you've got to figure out what the top ones are. What are the ones that are really going to move the needle? And then go focus on those.
So you also talk about, and it's something that I heard often in my corporate world. Sometimes you have to slow down to move fast. And so when things get tough, I think oftentimes people think, oh, well, we got to go fast. We got to make quick decisions, and yet not really understand the landscape and the big picture to really make good decisions.
Well, yeah,
So
I mean, you can go really fast in the wrong direction,
yeah, that's a good point.
right? Like, and how will you know? Like, there's a balance, but like if there's an immediate crisis situation and a client that's all upset, you still can take 10 minutes to talk about it, like, and strategize about it, figure out a plan, and
Right.
figure out what you're going to do about it, and not like go wildly off in all directions. And also, in my experience, when clients are really complaining about something, there's like the client side of the story, and then there's like my people's side of the story. And I like to hear both sides before I come to a solution.
Right.
Because, the client has their perspective, right? But if my staff like told them this was going to happen and that they should expect this and laid all the groundwork, and then the person's super upset, well, that's fine. But I mean, we did our best to let you know, inform you. Right. So my response is going to be different. But if I didn't slow down and elicit some other inside perspective, then I probably am going to have, so if I'm on the phone because someone's called me as the CEO to really complain, I honor them, I listen to them, I acknowledge what they're telling me, and then I give some reasonable timeline to get back, like maybe 24 or 48 hours, but not like I'll get back to you in an hour.
Yeah, because that's not reasonable.
Because it's not reasonable, even though the client may be pushing for that. So, and also I don't agree with them. I honor them. I recognize what they've said, but I don't like, oh, yeah, you're totally right. We need to do, X and Y and Z. I almost never will do that in the heat of the moment. It's like even I want to sit back and process this because I'm probably activated and by a really agitated, phone call.
Emotions running. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for all those reasons, there's always some kind of opportunity to slow down. It may be pretty narrow, but it's not just, and again, it's the difference between reacting and responding.
So we talked about a lot of action steps that an entrepreneur could take to really accelerate their business. But if we want to just narrow it down, what would your top 3 be? What would, and to get started, let's just say that.
To get started, and number 1 is find some way to step back from the business and work on the business, like the bigger picture, the vision, where you're going, check in, like I'm a sailor. So it's like, do you still want to go to the island that you were aiming for? And is the ship actually going the right direction to get you to the island?
Yeah.
Like, so there's that pause to think about that. Also, I think that most entrepreneurs, if they have a strategic plan or if they have really strong strategic goals, I coach around a lot. You should be spending at least a couple hours of the best hours of your day working on those strategic goals.
Yeah. When your mind is the best.
Correct. Right. Like whatever, for some people, that's the last couple hours of the day. Some it's the first 2. Like come in and for the first 2 hours, you don't do email. All you do is or you only do emails that are related to moving the key strategic directions forward. Now, of course, if you don't have any strategic directions, that's hard. So that's why you got to have some clear goals of where you're trying to aim for. But then if you have it, like you need to be putting in the time. That to me, as a CEO and a founder, like that is the most value. That will do the most to move the needle on the value of your business. Is if you are focused on the strategic direction and much less on the operational day to day. And depending on stage status and where you are and how big you are, you might still have to do a lot of operational stuff, but I really challenge them to say, like, if you have a strategy for the business, then you need to spend time every day. Even if it's an hour, but it needs to be some decent time where you're focused on those strategic initiatives, because that's what will make the most difference.
Okay, so we got that one.
How those are two. So you got to step back. You need to set goals, and then you need to make sure every day you're working on strategy. So those are the three that I'm recommending.
That's perfect. Well, for those in the audience that are just listening, if you haven't been taking notes, you missed a whole lot of good stuff, but definitely you can re-watch this video to be able to get all those notes again. But quickly go grab a paper and pencil, because I'm going to share my slide that has the contact information for David. So the website is Coach davidgreer.com. Again, that's Coach D like David, J like James, Greer.com. On Facebook, LinkedIn, Facebook and LinkedIn, he's you can search his name, David Greer, but Facebook is Coach DJ Greer. LinkedIn is David Greer. Twitter is DJ Greer. And Instagram is Coach DJ Greer. I'm going to turn it over to Coach DJ Greer to be able to tell you what you should look for when you go to the website that might help you, any resources, any way to set up a consultation with him, as well as in his social media, the different social medias that he spends the most time in, so you can get the best benefits. So it's all yours.
Okay. So if you visit my website, every single page, I think it's up on the top left, has my email address and my phone number. So I want to make it easy for you to contact me. I want your listeners to know that I offer a free 1 hour of coaching to anyone that wants it. Just reach out to me if you're stuck on something and you want some help. I'm happy to put in an hour. If that seems too daunting to do the outreach and talk together, then I wrote my book, Wind in Your Sails, Vital Strategies that Accelerate Your Entrepreneurial Growth for entrepreneurs. In fact, I interviewed over 50, and I feature 10 entrepreneur stories. A third of the book is other people's stories. And, I designed it as a reference work. So if you're stuck, if you believe in old-fashioned things like a paper book, you can actually look in the index at the topic you're stuck with and go read, somewhere between 3 and 6 pages, and you'll have at least a couple ideas of what to do next. And of course, there's the Kindle and a Nook, and there's also an Audible version. So, that's another resource that I specifically put together to be helpful to entrepreneurs. On social media, I'm probably most active on Instagram and Twitter. And so you can see me there on a pretty regular basis. So come hang out. Look forward to meeting you.
Awesome. So it has been just a pleasure hearing all about how we can, as entrepreneurs, really get unstuck, to grow our business, to really take it to the next level. You gave wonderful insights, and it's been such a pleasure to get to know you and to be able to have a great conversation today.
Thanks, Vicki.
As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.